Yeah, obviously there's shows worth watching. There's so many shows that have come out recently, some bad, some good. I'm just gonna give you a full breakdown on everything I've been watching. I had COVID for like 2 weeks, so all I did was watch shows and movies, so I'm all caught up on everything. Even My Hero Academia, I am all caught up on. So I'm just gonna give you a full breakdown on what's good, what's bad that's being aired right now. Let's start with the bad. Rings of Power. I don't know why I tried to catch up on this. This is like the only show I'm not caught up on because it's just too boring. The most exciting part of trying to catch up on Rings of Power was when I'd have like a coughing fit. At least then I'd be awake. Rings of Power is a hypnotic trance that it puts you in of just lame dialogue that's just circular trauma dumping between characters. That is still not changing. So I am not invested in that at all. I don't think I'm going to bother catching up on it. We'll see. If I was forced with a gun to my head to give a compliment to Rings of Power, I would definitely say that Sauron is the best part. Like, if I was to fish for something positive about it, I would say Sauron. I don't think the writing around Sauron is all that great, but I think the actor does a good job with the character, so when Sauron is in a scene, he is usually the best part of that scene. And also the only character that's actively moving things forward, while as every other character wants to exist in fucking stasis of just fucking calling the wambulance and ordering some french fries and a wham burger. Everyone's just always complaining or talking in circles around something they're not happy with. It's just not interesting. It is so deflating watching Rings of Power. What it did do for me, though, is it motivated me to go back and watch the Masterpiece trilogy. The Lord of the Rings trilogy still holds up so well. It is actually timeless. I watched the extended versions because I've never actually seen the extended versions. Masterpieces. I know everybody says that. I get it. That's not like a brave new take or anything, but it's true. And I do have a hot take for you. I didn't remember how much ass Frodo sucked. Frodo is a turbo dweeb. So, watching Fellowship of the Ring, let's start there. There is at least 20 separate instances of Frodo falling flat on his back. All the time. Like, almost every scene Frodo's in ends with him getting goddamn tomato canned and falling backwards. He puts on the ring, whoop, slips on like a banana peel like it's Mario Kart, and falls flat on his back. It happens so many times. Frodo is useless. Like, I know he's not useless, he's the ring bearer, but man, every scene he's in, he just falls. It's like slapstick comedy. It's like Buster Keaton for the Lord of the Rings universe. He is constantly slipping and falling. Like, it's not even that he's being pushed to his limits or anything. Sometimes he's just like kind of jogging around, fucking waddling, and then whoop, just falls. Like, there's a scene towards the end of Fellowship of the Ring. He's got the ring on. He evades Boromir. I'm sure all of you remember the scene. Then he's up on that tower, takes the ring off, and falls again. I was actually getting kind of frustrated. I feel like the extended versions is just more Frodo falls. It's like watching Chive TV at the gym, where you just see like people falling doing stuff. That's like Frodo's whole role in these movies. Of course, it's not his whole role, obviously. He's bringing the ring to Mordor, and, you know, I get it and everything. Like, he's not supposed to be some kind of adept fighter or anything. And his lines are good. Like, the writing around Frodo is good. I just wish he was able to do more, like, you know, kind of like Sam and kind of like Merry and Pip. Like, they actually do engage in, like, a combat scenario. So, like, when they're in Moria, for example, Sam, Merry, and Pip, they all, like, fight against the threat. Frodo runs and falls every time. And then he gets stabbed, but luckily he was wearing Mithril. And he's like, no, I'm unhurt. But it's like, Frodo, why did you fall then? He was actually playing dead. It's like, come on, man. Like, I wish he had been able to do more besides fall. But he is, of course, one of the most important characters in Lord of the Rings, for good reason. It was just, going back and watching these, I was like, Jesus, I don't remember him being so clumsy. I've already gone way off the path of, like, what's airing right now that's not good, but since I'm talking about movies, I will tell you a movie I watched recently that's very good, Late Night with the Devil. I had heard a lot of hype around this movie for the last 4 or 5 months, finally decided to watch it. Great movie. Actually a really unique horror movie. I don't think it's necessarily like a very scary film by any means, but it's a very well shot and a really great concept for a horror film done super well. I will say the ending, I like the ending, but the visuals kind of fall apart a little bit. It looked like an old 80s movie in the end, which that's going to work for some people, doesn't work for others. For me, I was kind of caught in between because I don't want to give any spoilers, but they use like electricity as part of the ending moment, and I think it just kind of made it look a little cheap towards the big climax finish. Otherwise, though, I think this movie is one of the better horror movies I've seen in recent years, so I do highly recommend checking out Late Night with the Devil for anyone that likes horror movies. I still need to watch First Omen, and I still need to watch Substance. Those I'll be watching soon. Now, back to things that are airing that are bad. The Rick and Morty anime. I already talked about it. I said I was going to stop watching it. I lied. Tried to catch up. I watched an additional episode. Dropped it again. It's still terrible. It's still absolutely horrible. I think that is an unwatchable show. That is a stain on animation. There is not a single thing I like about it. If there was a gun to my head forcing me to find a compliment, I'm eating lead. Like, I actually could not fish for a single nice thing to say about this show if I was guaranteed $1 billion just to eke out something almost construed as positive for it. It's not possible. I think the show is absolutely atrocious. Like, I'm struggling to find more descriptive words to showcase just how horrible the show is to watch, and I'm at a loss. It is one of the worst animations I've ever seen. I do think it is up there with Velma. That's a question I get asked a lot. Is it worse than Velma? I think it maybe is on par with Velma. It actually looks worse than Velma, too. There is just nothing to like about the Rick and Morty anime. Those are the only shows that I've been watching, was watching, that are bad. Now let's get to the ones that are definitely worth watching. The Penguin. So it's only 2 episodes deep right now, but I am really, really liking it. I think Colin Farrell does an unbelievable job with this character. So good. If I didn't know that was Colin Farrell, I would have never guessed. I would have said, wow, this is a superstar actor that has just been born. But it's a superstar actor that was born many years ago. Absolutely crushing this role. The Penguin is incredible. Even if you don't like Batman, if you haven't seen the Batman, whatever, you don't like it, I think you'll probably end up liking the Penguin. It's just so well written, and I love that they keep presenting Oz, the Penguin, with like these impossible scenarios. Like, you are constantly asking yourself, how the fuck is he going to get out of this with his head still intact? Like Jiminy Christmas, within the first 10 minutes of episode 1, he executes the most important character that gets introduced, and it would be very obvious that it was Oz that did it. Like, he has just killed the new Falcone, and it's a big deal, and they immediately connect that it was probably Oz that did that, and yet somehow he's able to figure out an elaborate solution to that problem where they don't suspect him anymore, and in fact, it actually works out really well for him. He looks really good. And it's not like a bunch of ass pulls or anything. It is so smart with the way it executes it, at least in my opinion. I also just think the Penguin as a character is really entertaining. Like, I was giggling. It's not a comedy show by any means, but I was laughing more in this show than some shows that aim to be a comedy. Like, I just think they really did a great job with Oz. He made me laugh. He's a terrifying character, too. He's not afraid to just kill people in cold blood. And when he does it, like, there's a greater purpose to it. It's just such a good show. Episode 2 continued this trend of putting him in a situation where it seems impossible for him to get out alive. Yet, not only does he find a way to get out alive, he finds a way to get more powerful from it. He has just these really elaborate, well thought out schemes that are executed to perfection. And it's such a treat to see. And it's more than just like conniving and planning and plotting and all of that. There's action too, and I think the action is good. It's not, you're not going to have the Penguin going out there doing martial arts to take down someone. He's not going to go out there doing Muay Thai and Wing Chun to like execute a man. He's going to shoot them, or he's going to stab them. So it's not like don't go in there expecting like crazy choreography or anything like that, but it's still really good in the action department. At least to me it is, because it's used so well. I just really like the Penguin so far. I am a huge fan, and I'm really excited for the next episode. Another show that came out just recently that I think is already worth watching is Uzumaki. This one's had a lot of hype for a long time. It's Junji Ito. I'm sure most of you are familiar with that name. And it's finally here. There's 1 episode, and I think it's good. Like, I think it's very good. I don't think it's perfect. Like, there are some things I think could be improved. It moves really fast, but I guess that's because there's not a ton of episodes, so they gotta move fast. But I think it's a good show. It's a unique looking show too, so I definitely think that's worth watching. And this one's going to be a surprise to most people, considering how hard I've shit on this show for years. My Hero Academia Season 7 I actually think is worth watching. Let me peel apart the layers of this onion here to explain. The biggest problem with My Hero, the one that I've always stated is the biggest problem, is that it always focused on the most boring elements of the show. They'd give you some very high highs, a great fight, great build up, and then they'd immediately kill their own momentum, shooting themselves in the asshole by making you fucking sit through another provisional licensing exam or some other like school music festival. Something very few people are going to care about unless you really love slice of life. And it always drilled home the exact same message every time, where it's like, these are my friends. I like my friends. I fight for my friends. I'm a hero for my friends. And it does that a million fucking times. But the show had always been able to deliver some very good moments early on, and then just lost its footing, fell off. But I do think season 7 is hype. And I think it's because they cannot focus on anything except the good stuff anymore. There is only the good stuff left. They can't go to a music festival now and dedicate fucking 12 episodes to it or whatever. Now, it's all about this fight. Stopping All for One, stopping Shigaraki, coming up with a plan in the face of insurmountable odds to defeat these villains. And it's good. It's flashy, it looks good, the fights are well animated. I do think the fights get a little sloppy though, especially when it was like Stars and Stripes versus Shigaraki. Super cool character, Star and Stripe, but her quirk was only utilized a couple of times, despite it being probably one of the strongest quirks we've seen introduced. And the fight was really only like maybe 2 minutes worth of actual action, and then it was kind of just monologuing from each side. So it is guilty of doing that, but to a lesser extent than it had been. And since that fight, I do think the other ones have had a lot less of that. So like when Deku finally starts fighting Tamura Shigaraki, he throws out quite a few attacks before a monologue happens. It's My Hero. You're guaranteed monologues mid-fight. It's like the tropiest, like, cliches ever. And it knows that. It's unapologetic about it. I don't think it's that big of a deal, as long as everything else around it is also good. And so far in Season 7, I do think that it is. So I'm definitely enjoying this season a lot more than previous seasons, and hopefully it has a strong conclusion. Those are the main shows that I've been really enjoying so far over the last, 2 weeks, and I just figured I'd share, because I've been watching so much shit, so I just wanted to give you a quick little breakdown on some of it. That's really about it. See ya.